The White Sox are just a little bit past the midway point of the season. Good time to grade the Sox GM, manager, and players, but not exactly doing it in the traditional way. Let's categorize the evaluations next on Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, a lifelong Sox fan and the site expert of Southside Showdown, part of the Fansided Network. You can check out my written content at SouthsideShowdown.com. And also, I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox. Also follow or subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Now, the White Sox season has gone as bad as you can possibly imagine. 3 months of the season have passed, and the Sox are 24-62, dead last in all of baseball, and 30 games behind the Cleveland Guardians in the AL Central, who the Sox start a 3-game road set with tonight. And I'll discuss the keys / what to watch for in that series during the final segment. But what I want to hit on in the first two segments is how you and I should evaluate the Sox GM, manager, and players after 3 months in the first two segments. And that's how long it's going to take, folks. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as playoffs wind down. The sport stops sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started. All right. The key takeaway here is if you are one of those fans who have checked out on the Sox, but still occasionally visit, one of the reasons I'm here to tell you if it's still bad, and it still is, or if there's some hope, and there is some hope, and then you can just go about your life, is the Sox have the worst manager in the game. And they have a lot of players that it's hard to even say they're adequate replacement level players. Obviously, for those who stick around and still watch this team either out of blind love, fierce loyalty, or maybe this will help you free from any form of penance, the 3 reasons why I still watch the White Sox, you know that there are not many players that you'd give an A grade to. In fact, there's not a lot of players that you'd give a B grade to. Some C's, a lot of D's, and a lot of F's. And if you want like that type of evaluation, my guy Jeremy Duvall, he did a great job on Southside Showdown. There's a piece up there, so go check it out. Instead, let's categorize them. And let's categorize the players, GM, and manager under these categories. All-star, career trending in the right direction, still unknown, already failed to prove themselves, seat filler, meets expectations or slightly exceeding them, downright awful, and why are you still here? And then finally, incomplete. Felt like I just read off like a Jeopardy board. Potent potables. All right, so let's start with the All-Stars. There's just 2. It's Eric Fetty and Garrett Crochet. And don't worry, I'll get to Luis Robert Jr. in a little bit. Fetty might have been the best offseason signing in all of baseball. Absolute failure in his first stint in the majors with the Nationals. Goes to Korea, wins the KBO Cy Young by making some major adjustments to how he threw. Comes back to the Sox on a 2-year deal, and he's just been outstanding. 100 innings for the Sox. He's a 2.3 F4, 3.23 ERA, and a 3.58 FIP. And having that extra year of control, even though he's 30, is going to make him a very valuable trade piece come the deadline. The Sox made a bet on Crochet, making a bet on himself that he would become a starter, and it's paying off big time as I've certified him now many times on the show as an ace. Now you just have to appreciate him while he's here, as I talked about on yesterday's show, that the Sox are likely to trade him. And for those that are like, well, I need another 3 months to see if he's an ace. He's an ace. I'm sorry. Look at the numbers. And I had somebody argue with me on X, formerly Twitter, about like, well, you should cash out on his trade value now. It's at its highest. And it's because also Michael Kopech, he had a good first half, and then he was nothing. Okay, I looked back. Michael Kopech had a decent 2 months in 2022. So if you're going to compare Michael Kopech's first half of 2022 to Garrett Crochet already has him beat by a month. And you can just tell the difference. Garrett Crochet doesn't have the head issues per se, where he's like, I just got to throw this ball faster and faster if somebody gets a hit on me. So trust me, do not compare Crochet to Kopech. And also, the Sox are about to trade a pitcher that they drafted and developed who has a 3.7 F4. All right, so career trending in the right direction. Rookie pitchers Drew Thorpe and Jonathan Cannon. Now, granted, it's a small sample size. Few struggles for both, but mostly good. Very, very encouraging so far, and I've discussed them many times on previous shows. Corey Lee. Now, he might not be an all-star, but he's showing that he can be a very capable backup catcher on the cheap, and you need those. And you can rotate him at DH with the catcher of the future, Edgar Carroll, once he's here, and Gavin Sheets. He's had 8 dingers, 230, 270, 382 slash line. Again, not great, but very capable of being a backup catcher. Advanced stats give him good defensive metrics, except the framing could be better. But hey, if you get the automatic umpire, framing won't matter. And again, they're numbers that are very good for a backup catcher. Reliever Jared Schuster. He has shown promise in the pen. Young lefty that you can use for a while on the cheap. I'm actually putting Andrew Vaughn back in this category. He's recovered nicely from that horrendous start, and I put him in here because he's still young. He's actually almost back to being a replacement level player. But seriously, he was looking like he needed to be demoted to AAA and then had a very good June. And since he's still young, under team control, and first base is not valued as much, if you can keep hitting at this pace, you at least have that position secured for a while, and you can always look for an upgrade at first base. Still unknown. A lot of young players that have come up, but the team still prefers to play veterans, so you don't have a very clear picture if they can help you be the next help on the next competitive team or not. I'm going to put rookie pitchers Nick Nastarini and Jordan Leisure. Nastarini has to figure out his command. Leisure, good for about 6 weeks, struggled and then got sent down. So we need to see him return after the deadline. Oscar Colas showed he might be able to salvage his career with better plate discipline, but needs to drive the ball. And then Brian Ramos flashed a ton of potential in his brief call-up. Baseball came for him. And instead of seeing if the adjustment can be made to the adjustment, he got demoted to AAA. Failed to prove themselves. Dominic Fletcher and Braden Shoemake. Fletcher was anointed the starting right fielder. The Sox even sent a 21-year-old pitcher for him, and he has a 173, 253, 227 slash line, and he's been demoted twice. Shoemake just can't hit at the big leagues. I don't think he's going to be a utility player. He's a 4A guy. Seat filler, Lenine Sosa, proving he can at least somewhat hit big league pitching in this recent go-around with the big league club, but not really by much. It's 223 average, but hey, at least it's better than that sub 200. But he's just filling third base until Yohan Moncada comes back. And Yohan Moncada would be, why are you still on this team? Sox are definitely not going to exercise his option. I'm putting Eloy Jimenez here because it's sad to see his body not allowing him to reach his potential with all the injuries. Team should move on from him in the offseason, but he still wants to play. So let him, because he can DH. And then meets expectations or slightly exceeding them. I got Gavin Sheets. Got off to that great start, but cooled off. But he still can be a bench piece at 28 and under team control until 2028. Nicky Lopez, been solid at second. Paul DeYoung, defensively, definitely not meeting expectations, but he's hit 15 home runs. And that's made him valuable to a contender looking for depth and power off the bench. Tommy Pham has been a godsend in his brief time with his leadership and professional bat. Chris Flexen, he gets in the jams, but he's doing a good job of getting out of them as a starter on basically a $1 million deal. And a contender might want him on the cheap to help get them through August and September, and then long relief in the playoffs. Michael Soroka, the starter, was a failure. Soroka, the long reliever, is good. Corey Julk started off on a heater, but he's cooling off. But hey, if you need a fourth outfielder for the rest of the year, he's your guy. Michael Kopech, you might find him to be a failure, but if he's working on it, if he can, use the secondary stuff, he's been a good reliever, and the Sox have been showcasing him pretty well right now. And he should be moved to the trade deadline. Steven Wilson needs to cut down on the walks, but it's been okay. John Brebbia, again, solid June, should be traded. Chant Cool, I was a harsh critic of him uh, since they brought him up and sent Leisure down, but been very good in long relief. Was the opener last week in a bullpen game that saw the Sox shut out the Atlanta Braves. Tanner Banks, Justin Anderson, they've been solid. And it's weird to have all these bullpen arms meet expectations since the bullpen has blown a ton of leads during that awful 39 game stretch, that brutal 39 game stretch. And, but the one thing is the pen has been better recently. Two, we don't have very high expectations for them. And a lot of these players are, you got to think, why are all these players in meets expectations? We didn't really have high expectations for them. So they're basically relative to the low expectations. And three, the team got rid of guys that were really bad, and Tim Hall, Davey Garcia, and Brian Shaw. All right, now on to the criticism as I'll discuss who should be in the downright awful, what are you still doing here, and the incomplete category next on Locked On White Sox. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. In terms of what to play tonight when the Sox face the Guardians, the over-under is at 9.5, although the over is at minus 102. The under is at minus 120. You got Flexen and Carrasco's ERA. They might not be the best, but Flexen's been good at getting in and out of trouble. However, I would go more with the home run prop bets. Maybe Eloy's legs are starting to get back under him and his timing might get back and he crushes one. A home run for him is going off at plus 450. And maybe you think Andrew Vaughn's going to go deep. He's at plus 480. So head over to fanduel.com/locked on and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. And are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest sports stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And the White Sox start a 3-game road series against the Cleveland Guardians. First pitch is Tuesday at 5:40 p.m. Central. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter, and thank you for making the show your first listen. Again, lots of great White Sox podcasts out there, and lots of great baseball podcasts out there, like the Baseball Insiders from Fansided. And I'm going to have host Adam Weinrib on the show tomorrow. I just always ask, hey, listen to me first. And make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox. Also follow or subscribe to the show on wherever you get your podcasts. All right, what is sad is the player that the White Sox signed to the richest free agent contract in franchise history is just downright awful. That's where he falls into in this category of me categorizing the players. Andrew Benintendi, the White Sox, gave a 5-year, $75 million contract to last year, is a minus 1.5 F4 right now. You want an example of how the Sox got here? It was a previous front office regime spending bad money. Rick Hahn and Kenny Williams spent too much of the precious limited financial resources on the bullpen, and then they spent it on a non-power hitting corner outfielder in Benintendi. He was at one point the worst hitter in baseball when his OPS qualified to be ranked. But then he went on the IL with an Achilles injury. And, maybe it might have been a phantom IL stint. Either way, it's done nothing. So OPS is still awful at 546. He is 5 for 34 over the past 15 games. That's just downright awful. And if GM Chris Getz, who USA Today's Bob Nightingale reported on Sunday that Getz wants to get Benintendi up out of here, finds a way to trade him for anything, then Getz will move from incomplete, which I'll get to shortly, into the All-Star rankings. I think it was shot on. I saw on social media Somebody's saying that we should put a statue up of Getz if he could actually trade uh, Andrew Benintendi. I don't see the owner agreeing to eat that much salary because you're going to have to first, you're going to have to find a team that was just like the White Sox that ranked Benintendi so highly in the draft and that still is in love with him. I don't think you're going to find that. And then you're going to have to eat a huge chunk of his salary just to get maybe the Robbie Grossman return. Which, hey, I mean, at this point, you want if you can get a cheap bullpen arm, great. Now, I could put Martin Maldonado and manager Pedro Grifol in the downright awful category, but I'm putting them in they should not even be here anymore. Again, why are they still here? Maldonado, he still gets playing time despite being a minus 1.9 F4 player. The catcher is still batting under 100, and he's a minus 28 WRC plus. And the front office and Grifol, they still love his leadership, how he handles a pitching staff and calls a game. Yet Jonathan Cannon's only terrible start since he returned to the big leagues happened to come when Maldi was catching. Just saying. And great. You know, he can do a very good pitching mound visit, but so can other catchers. And I get it. He's helped mentor Lee, but I think he's taken him as far as he can go. And with the offensive numbers and just basically being a clear automatic out, if you value his intangibles so much, those intangibles can be easily a nice title of assistant catching / pitching coach after no one claims him when he is DFA'd. Pedro Grifol, I get it. He should not be completely blamed for the season, but it's still not the reason that he should finish out the season. I mean, do you really trust him after the Sox trade their veteran assets for Pedro to help in their development? A lot of the young players that they'll bring up. He's already buried Oscar Colas once. You might be saying like, wow, Todd, you really love Oscar Colas. I'm just saying that there's something potentially there. Let's see it. But it's also an example of Pedro still always prefers to play veterans rather than play the young players in a lost season. And as I've said on previous shows, him staying around is also a frustrating part of this organization because it's a total lack of accountability and frugalness. The owner doesn't want to pay him to go away, and it appears Pedro has some blood oath sworn to Jerry Reinsdorf. And we all know how Jerry Reinsdorf is very loyal, and it's a redeeming quality, actually. I mean, you would love to have your boss be loyal to you, but if you're not performing, in a wins and loss business, you got to get up out of here. And I've hammered away at Pedro so many times that you can find more reasons for him to not be here in past shows. And I don't mean to just go do your own research. It's just, I've discussed it so many times, but that's where Pedro belongs after 3 months of this season. Why are you still here? All right, incomplete. Luis Robert Jr., basically an injury knocked him out for most of April and May. He did return in early June. He's obviously hit some homers, but the average and on-base percentage are way, way down. Well, the on-base is always going to be down because how he's a free swinger at the plate. But you would like to see the average obviously not be 200. And that's also kind of putting everybody on shaky ground when it comes to his trade value. I'd still not be worried as he's, that timing type hitter. And he needs to make an adjustment on the inside pitch. He's kind of got to get that bat going a little bit sooner so he can turn on it. Because that's really what a lot of pitchers are doing. They're just trying to bust him inside and down because he likes that pitch down. And you and I have seen Andrew Vaughn. He had his issues, and then he made the adjustments. And sometimes those adjustments take time. Plus, LRJ has shown he has the talent to produce, and he's still impacting the game defensively. And as I discussed on Friday's show, he literally beat the Atlanta Braves with only the assistance of the bullpen last Thursday. Crushed a home run, and the Sox beat the Braves. And then Chris Getz. Yes, he should get the blame for this bad roster. He put it together. And make no mistake about it, even though I put a lot of players in the meets expectations category, it does not mean this team is good. Clearly, they're not. And you know that. I've talked about it constantly, time and time again, about how bad this team is. But again, a lot of these expectations were relatively low. And at the same time, not many free agents were coming here based on the toxic reputation of the team. So Getz is trying to clear that up. And did he fail on upgrading the defense? Yes. That's why I don't want to make it sound like this is a defensive gets. It's really hard to say he's an abject failure, all that stuff, because there's just so much context around that. And that's the other thing for all the critics out there, like that, that check in on the team that, already cashed out. You're missing the context. And he did make 3 shrewd moves in signing Fetty, Flexen, and DeYoung. Also made the right decision to trade Dylan Cease during spring training. And the team is already starting to see production from that trade. And that's why I put him as incomplete, because he still hasn't finished a full year as a GM. We still need to see how Mike Shirley and him run a draft in 2 weeks. Still need to see what he gets in the trade market with his assets. I do hate that he's willing to trade Crochet, but as the Sox Machine podcast pointed out, it is hard to put a contract together to get an agreement with Crochet. Obviously, his camp has his ideas on how much he's worth. The Sox have their ideas, because you really don't realistically only have half a season. Now, you can pay him based on projection, which I think they should. And I'd like to see them also be like the Dodgers and just pay him, say, the 125 mil like they did with Tyler Glasnow. Because that's what big market teams do. They just keep taking spins at getting pitching. And especially if it's young, I pay it. Well, if they get hurt, well, sunk cost. But the Sox can't do sunk costs. And also, if you got 15 teams calling you, all it takes is one fellow GM to say you're staying on the phone until we get a deal done with Crochet. So, I do not like the process, how he got the job, but at least there are signs he might be able to do this. But at the same time, there are signs that he might be in over his head. There's also signs that he might not even be in control, as he might just be doing the bidding of special advisor Tony La Russa. All right, so back to actual games. The Sox take on the AL Central leading Cleveland Guardians this week. I'll discuss what to watch for / keys in that series next on Locked On White Sox. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you have to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stats, projections, and watch the winnings roll in. And you can win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000 if you're looking for promotions. PrizePicks has you covered every week, from lowering select player stats projections on Tuesdays to help your lineup hit, or getting your entry fees back if you have a losing lineup on Fridays. And also, again, PrizePicks is available in over 30 states. I keep telling you, the one buddy on my text chain, he keeps loving that, he lives behind the cheddar curtain, so he can at least get some entries in. And again, it's easy, so you got a chance to play an easy app. Why not? And it's fun, and you can play it in most states. Why not do it? So download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks for a deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. And here on Locked On White Sox, we pride ourselves on getting you the latest news for your team, whether it's the offseason, the draft, spring training, or the playoffs. It's year-round. And you know what else is year-round? Collection season. Just because tax season is over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, and even seize your property. And don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. After I graduated college, I worked a job in banking collections to pay the bills. And trust me, the IRS is no joke. Not because they went after me. It's just that as a bill collector, bill collectors will threaten certain action that they cannot actually go through with for various reasons. But the IRS can, because they're usually the ultimate lien holder. So when the IRS threatens action, they mean it. So if you have unfiled taxes, reach out to Tax Network USA. With over 14 years of experience and an A+ rating by the Better Business Bureau, Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters that require tax planning, or finally hit that parlay this season and need help correctly filing, call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon, and be sure to mention Locked On White Sox at checkout, and you'll receive a $250 discount off their services. And the White Sox start a 3-game road series against the Cleveland Guardians tonight. First pitch is at 5:40 p.m. Central. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM and on the SXM app. Search White Sox. And again, welcome back into Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Thank you for sticking with me this far. Shout out to the YouTube community. It's on the YouTube page at Locked On White Sox. Um, Great discussion. Like I said, I like having discussion. You don't have to agree with me, but I'll just say this: if you come onto social media with me and I don't follow you, or we don't know each other, and you just come in being a troll, I will defend myself. I equate it to when anybody trolls you and you don't follow each other or whatever. When anybody trolls you, I equate it to somebody just randomly walking into your house, open up your fridge, grabbing an Arnold Palmer out the fridge or a beer, sitting down on your couch with their dirty shoes and just messing up the place, and then being like, why are you mad that I took your stuff and messed the place? Like, you came into my house uninvited. I didn't ask for you. Had that situation yesterday, but I try to be nice. I think people like authentic people. I think people generally like uh, nice people. And I know in this business, you should either be loved or hated. But Mark Grody, who's my idol, he's liked and popular. So that's what I'm aiming for. Anyway, the Sox are 30 games back of the Cleveland Guardians. And what you'll see in the next 3 games against the division rival is a team contending for the playoffs based on the path the Sox hope to follow. The Guardians are very good at developing pitching, and they have a few homegrown bats that have them at the top of the division. They found a very good manager in Stephen Vogt to replace Hall of Fame manager Terry Francona. Now, the Sox are going to have to do that with their farm system as they have plenty of young arms stockpiled, so they're going to have to develop their pitching. And they got a few bats in the system, however, they're unknown. But the Sox will need to replace Pedro Grifol after the season when, fingers crossed, he is eventually fired. So you kind of get a preview of maybe can the Sox follow the Guardians' path. The Guardians are ranked between 10 and 13th in the league in home runs, on base percentage, slugging, OPS, and team average. It's their pitching that's their calling card. 7th in team ERA and homers allowed, and 8th in WHIP. And the team is 11th in fielding percentage. Again, the Guardians are not going to wow you. They're just flat out good. However, the Sox do lead the season series 4-3. So the first thing to watch for /keys is, can the Sox steal some wins again? And the Sox are one of the 9 losses Cleveland has at home. That's right. The Guardians are 26-9 at Progressive Field. Also, Jose Ramirez and Josh Naylor absolutely destroy White Sox pitching. So is this the series that the Sox finally find a way to minimize their damage? Like, hey, maybe don't throw them fastballs or just pitch to them in general. Throw some stuff away, see if you can maybe get them to chase. But even if they get on base, they get on base. At least they haven't crushed you. Also, Stephen Kwan, he's hitting .368, even though it does not qualify because of injuries. But can the Sox keep him cooled off? He was hitting .398 on June 16th. And finally, Drew Thorpe, he's scheduled to pitch the series finale. Hopefully he's able to continue the trend of solid to strong starts that he's had to kick off his career. And you also got Fetty and Flex in pitching, so hopefully they do nothing to ruin their trade value. Well, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. But before I go, are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting. Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest sports stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I'll be back tomorrow with Adam Weinrib of Fansided Baseball's Insider Podcast. Yeah, we're going to discuss some White Sox trade deadline stuff, rumors, all that good stuff. So I'm really looking forward to talking with him. Basically, I'm talking with my boss because he's also the MLB editorial director, and I'm the site expert of Southside Showdown. So make sure to subscribe to the YouTube page at Locked On White Sox, or follow or subscribe to the show on wherever you get your podcasts. Feel free to leave comments about today's topics regarding categorizing the Sox players, manager, and GM after the halfway point of the season, and what to watch for /keys against the Guardians. You can leave them at the episode page on YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, at ToddJDub, or at Locked On Sox, or you can email me at LockedOnWhiteSox@gmail.com. Have a great day. I will see you tomorrow.